A Disney World vacation is no cheap matter. We're reminded of that every year when ticket prices are regularly bumped up. It's usually paired with a bunch of news articles about Disney becoming an increasingly expensive experience. However, it wasn't always that way. Back when Disney World opened in 1971, an adult 11-ride ticket book cost $5.75, and a room at the Contemporary cost up to $44 a night. Even adjusted for inflation, that would come out to around $34.50 for the tickets and $264 for the hotel. In reality, a one-day Magic Kingdom ticket costs $132 with tax, and a night at the Contemporary facing the theme park can run around $675 a night. So what happened? When did Disney World get so expensive? Well, the quick and short answer is that CEO Michael Eisner and CFO Gary Wilson happened. The long answer is that circumstances at the time really made the decision simple, and it's kind of hard to vilify them for what was otherwise a sound business move. You see, Disney as a company was in a bit of a rough spot when Eisner took over as CEO. With the death of Walt Disney in the later half of the 1960s, the 1970s were somewhat of a lost era for the company. Sure, today we can look back at projects like Robin Hood and The Rescuers and see them as classics, but the truth is the company wasn't growing financially during this time. A company once known for constant innovation at the hand of Walt Disney quickly became one that relied on its old tricks due to a what would Walt do mentality. This lack of evolution and change was partially beneficial for fans, as it was an era in which admission prices at the parks didn't really rise too steeply. Annual increases ranged from 50 cents to $1 or so. As CEO at the time Card Walker put it, "We have to keep our prices low so that guests feel they've gotten a good value." It was a continuation of Walt's own approach to the parks. Profit was secondary to making something people loved. Unfortunately, corporate raiders on Wall Street didn't care about what Walt thought 20 years prior, and so the stagnation of the company into the early 1980s made Disney a prime target for a hostile takeover. Thanks to the efforts of Walt's nephew, Roy E. Disney, the raiders were ultimately warded off. If you want to know more about how, I have a great book suggestion at the end of this video. Long story short, however, it meant a change in leadership at Disney, and that meant bringing in Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. Even before officially signing on as CEO, Eisner saw the value that was being underutilized at the Disney parks. In order to keep away any future Wall Street raiders, Disney needed to start improving their bottom line, and fast. Eisner brought in a new chief financial officer from Marriott named Gary Wilson, and without any hesitation, ticket prices started to go up. Just to give you an idea of the rate and the amount of the increases, consider this. Just 2 years prior to Michael Eisner joining the company, Disney World ticket prices rose twice for a total of $3, from $15 for a one-day ticket to $18. In the 2 years following his arrival, tickets rose in price 5 times, jumping $8 to $26. The surprising part for Disney was that even with the frequent price hikes, attendance wasn't dropping, proving Eisner right. There was more value in the admission to the Disney parks than Disney was realizing. The new Disney leadership also saw value that was going unrecognized elsewhere, specifically in hotels on property and VHS releases of Disney classic films. The company similarly cashed in on those opportunities, and by 1987, the company's operating income jumped from just under $300 million to nearly $800 million. The turnaround kept raiders at bay. Prices continued to rise in the 1990s and early 2000s. Even into Bob Iger's tenure as CEO over the last 10 years, tickets would see annual hikes that leave us at the prices we have today. Now, some might argue that Disney is very different from the state it was in 30 years ago, and so they should stop raising prices. However, even though Disney improved drastically, they weren't always totally in the clear. For instance, as late as 2004, Disney was the target of another takeover bid, this time by Comcast. For better or for worse, the growth-focused mindset of Wall Street and the constant looming threat of being purchased, willingly or otherwise, by a bigger fish means companies like Disney are forced to try and grow every single year. This means more revenue, this means higher prices to get there. So ultimately, Disney World is so expensive because historically, the price hikes were crucial to elevating the company as a whole and closing a nearly 15-year gap of stagnation. It protected the company from outside buyers by making the company more valuable. But beyond that, the answer is because, when all is said and done, after each price hike, people are still willing to pay for it. If you're interested in learning more about the attempted hostile takeover of Disney in the early 1980s that resulted in Eisner stepping in as CEO, I suggest checking out Storming the Magic Kingdom by John Taylor. You can find a link to the book in my description below. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.